The webinar is okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our webinar on child protection. My name is Sienna Dukowski, and I'm the Director of Community and Social Affairs for Lady Ascari. Lady Ascari is a female-focused security risk management company based in Nairobi, Kenya. One of the issues we focus on are security issues that affect our communities. One such issue is child online protection. Since the onset of COVID-19, there has been a rise in children's use of technology, but how can we be sure that they are safe from predators? Today, I'm joined with our community partners from Protect Us Kids, who will discuss some of the threats our children face while using technology, and She Hacks, who will share tips on how to safeguard our children while using technology. So I'd like to take the time to thank you all for coming and hand it over to Protect Us Kids.
Thank you, Sienna. I'll hand it over to Michael for introductions. Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And thank you for everyone for joining this webinar. Just a brief intro of who we are as Protect Us Kids. We're based in the United States. The goal is for us to protect all our youths. Protecting the youth with the advent of the social emergency, social environment, youth using Instagram, using Facebook, getting to use the mobile devices. It takes a high risk that we need to look inward and see what our kids are engaged with. Next slide. So how do we want to focus on this? We want to be able to make sure that not only the kids are aware, but the parent as well understand what the kids are doing. So it takes the two sides to be well educated and create a proper awareness for both the kids and their parents. We intend to see how we can minimize the potential risk. We intend to create a well-defined education awareness, I will call it, for both parents and the kids so that we understand what is going on in the wider world, which we call the WW. We want to make sure that we engage to build the need to know what to respond to, most especially to the kids that engage in series of conversation. And that is the way we want to build it and create that awareness for both parents and the kids.
Thank you, Michael. So, hello everyone. My name is Anna and I'm the volunteer coordinator for Protect Us Kids Foundation, and I also am in charge of social media strategy. And I will go over the portion about trafficking, online commercial child exploitation. I will also talk about how it happens in online, how it happens in Kenya in particular. Also, we'll cover how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected it. And then after that, we will give the floor to She Hacks. We will take all questions at the end. So please put your questions into the question and answer box and we will answer them at the end. So first of all, I wanted to explain, so what is human trafficking and sex trafficking? So the United Nations defines human trafficking as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, and receipt of person by improper means, meaning by really improper ways against their will, and also for improper purposes. So it could be either forced labor or sexual exploitation, and the traffickers use different modes to compel adults and children of all genders, nationalities, no matter where they're from, to lure them in. So trafficking is broken down into three main buckets. First, it's the action. It's the way how they're recruiting people, transporting them. The means is the way, by coercing, by convincing, by forcing, by fraud. And then the purpose, which I mentioned, which could be either for commercial sex acts or labor services. What Protect Us Kids focuses on is protecting children from online sexual exploitation and grooming, which I'll explain the grooming process in a little bit. So what is online sexual exploitation? Online sexual exploitation can take different forms. It can be by possessing or distributing images of children or children being sexually abused. It's often referred to as child pornography. And there are a lot, unfortunately, of examples of this happening on the internet. The other part of it is grooming the children, so developing relationships with them and convincing them to do certain acts. It's also evident in live streaming of abuse of children. And the last portion is sextortion, where the materials are produced and used for financial or other personal gains. The whole problem with online child sexual exploitation is that it can cause severe damage to these youth. It can cause long-term emotional and physical trauma for the kids. It can affect the way that they perceive themselves, and they can, if they're abused, they can learn to use sexual behavior as a tool to gain affection, attention, gift, or privileges, which is traumatic sexualization. They can also develop a lack of trust in general in people. They can feel very powerless. Obviously, it causes a lot of distress, shame, guilt, and anger, and a combination of all of those happens. And when you think about who the victims are, trafficking victims can be really anybody. It can be female, male, boys, girls, foreign citizens, immigrants, citizens of the native citizens of the country. People come from different ages, different economic backgrounds, and different situations. And the children can range in ages. Now, when we look at Kenya from recent statistics and studies, we've seen that approximately 1 in 6 victims is trafficked for either forced labor, sexual exploitations, or other reasons, such as children are sometimes used as beggars. About 2 in 3 victims are between the age of 18 and 20. Some are older. There's also approximately 60% that are trafficked for forced labor and 20% that are trafficked for sexual exploitation. Now, when, as Michael mentioned in the beginning, when we're looking at our mission as an organization, we're focusing on online commercial sex trafficking. And the majority of how it happens online is via either messaging apps like WhatsApp or social media applications like Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, or sometimes even online games that kids are using. So there are a lot of dangers online, and at the end of this presentation, we will share a document with tips for you for things to look out that could be indicators, and also just cyber awareness tips for the kids that you could use. So the three things I would like to focus on is in game chat rooms. A lot of times kids play games and they're playing with someone who's a stranger. They don't know who is behind the screen, where that person is, and that person can very well pretend to be someone they're not. Also, when kids are playing games or communicating on social media sites, whether it's on their phones or on their computers, traffickers can use like pop-up ads or scam alerts to lure kids in if they click on it. And the other very important thing to notice is that not only kids shouldn't be sharing information, personal information on themselves online, but location services is a very important topic to discuss, because a lot of times kids or even adults, we don't know that our location services on our smartphones, on our laptops, on our tablets are enabled, which can help the trafficker to find where you are. So when we look at social media usage and sites in Kenya, there was a recent study that was done by the United States International University in Africa in collaboration with the US Embassy in Nairobi. And what they found is that the majority of the social media usage happens on WhatsApp and Facebook. There is some on Instagram, Twitter, and you can see those on the picture on the left. When they looked at the ages of people who use social media, you can see that kids between the age of 14 and 20 use a lot of these social media sites frequently. And then obviously older youth and young adults use them as well. There was another recent study in 2018 actually that was done to find out how children in Kenya use the internet. And took a sample of children and had them take a survey, and they found that the majority of their time online is spent watching movies, downloading music, playing games, but also some of it is accessing adult content. Now, another thing that we notice right now with the pandemic that is going on, that a lot of kids are spending time online doing distance learning, which is also a factor. So just like I said before, there are a variety of things that kids do online. And the way they message a lot of times is by using emojis. And sometimes we don't think that an emoji can be misinterpreted. And the groomers, who are the traffickers, who use also those emojis to communicate with the kids in order to gain trust with them, in order for the kids to feel like, oh, they speak the same language as I speak. And a lot of those are often misinterpreted. But the other important thing to remember is also that those traffickers look online for what the kids are writing and how they're writing. So a lot of times messages like, nobody gets me, or I'm tired of being single, or like any messages that show that somebody is not confident in themselves, like feel ugly or don't feel smart, or care about how they look, or they're not getting along with their parents and they're saying something like, my parents don't trust me, or I'm being treated like a kid, or I need to get out of here. Those are like big flags for predators, because the way they read it is, this is a vulnerability I can use to befriend that child. And then when I become their friend and gain their trust, which I will go through the grooming steps in a minute, then I can have them do things for me, whether it's sexual exploitation, whether it's labor. So the way the traffickers read it, and then they respond to those kids by comforting them, saying, oh, I understand you. I'll make your life better. I'll protect you. I'll be your friend. You can count on me, and I will hear you. And so the grooming phases, like I mentioned, there are 6 main phases that are being followed. They don't necessarily have to happen in this particular order, but usually this is the way that it goes. The traffickers first target the victim. So they see messages like the ones I just showed, where the child is unhappy about something or just identify a vulnerability. They also, like I said, I can identify, in the picture on the bottom, you see a map that is used on Snapchat, and a lot of times kids don't turn that off, so the trafficker can even know where that child is. And then after they target the victim, they look into who the victim is and do some research and try to gain their trust. So they might look through the pictures, through messages, and see, how can I befriend that child? And then they send messages to gain trust. It could be a message like the one you see on the right, like, oh, I have a gift for you, or just giving a compliment, like the message on the left. Oh, I love your post, like you look great. And then after they gain the victim's trust, they try to fill a need. So the need could be, like the picture you see on the left, is someone who wants a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Or the need could be just a friend, because you feel like you don't have friends, or nobody understands you, or you don't get along with your parents. And then the next step is isolating. So using different tactics to isolate the child from either parents or friends or both, by saying things like, oh, I understand you. Oh, they don't get you. Oh, I'll make your life better, which basically increases the trust and then isolates the child from parents, friends, from their environment, from teachers. And then the traffickers try to sexualize their relationship. So asking for pictures, asking for videos, asking to go live on video, whether it's on a gaming site, on a social media application, or something like that. And the final stage is maintaining control. So when they identified the need and identified what they can do to fill that need, they can maintain control in various ways. It can be by intimidating, which, like threatening, can be threatening, not only physically if the child meets that person, but also threatening through messages. Emotional abuse, like threatening to humiliate. If the child did send a photo, then something like, oh, I'll distribute your photo, or I'll send it to everybody. Once the person is with the trafficker, that could be a lot of sexual abuse, physical abuse, economic abuse, like prohibiting access to finances, or taking money from them that they earned. And those are very different ways that this control is maintained. So just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of things that we found that are happening in Kenya. So according to the most recent economic survey of Kenya, in 2019, there have been more than 2,000 cases of child trafficking. Approximately 1,359 children were abducted. The cases included labor, unlawful confinement, and other activities. And the survey also mentioned that there's been an increase of 34.9% from 2018 to 2019 in trafficking cases. So just to give you a couple of examples that I have found there was a case of a woman in Mombasa who gave birth to her child in the hospital, and she was convinced to stay a day longer in the hospital to do some medical checks for the child. And the day after, when she was leaving to take her child was stolen from her, and later it was found that the child was sold and trafficked. Another case of a young lady in Kenya who was looking for a job to provide for her family, and she was offered a better job in the Middle East as a housekeeper. And she thought nothing of it until when she came there, and she was abused, forced to work very long hours, and a lot of her money was taken from her. And the last example I would like to mention is something I mentioned earlier, is that a lot of times there are cases of children that are being used as beggars, and in particular disabled children from families that need the money, and they're convincing the children or the family to use the child in order to get money by being a beggar. But then actually the trafficker is the one who gets the money. So right now, we're in all over the world going through very tough times with the pandemic. And pandemic affected everybody differently, obviously. But the three main areas that I'd like to focus on of impact is how it impacted the economy, transportation, and education, and how those can be related to trafficking. So from an economic perspective, a lot of people lost their jobs because of closures, because of the pandemic. What happens is that there is a financial strain on the family. And sometimes kids want to step up and help their parents, or they're forced to step up and help. And it could be older children who decide to drop out of school and try to support the family members. Or it could be younger children who are targeted online with these like ads of telling them, I'll give you a gift, or you can send me pictures and model, and I'll pay you for that, or things like that. And there are a lot of legal and illegal agencies and scammers that offer these fraudulent jobs under very false pretenses to those who are seeking employment. From a transportation perspective, just the fact that a lot of kids are staying at home, and they can't go anywhere, and there are also like flight cancellations, strict lockdowns, and there's an increasing use of ground transportation. Now, ground transportation is very hard to track as opposed to flights. And that is an advantage for traffickers, that if they do traffic people and want to transfer them through borders to work in other countries or to exploit them in other countries, they use trucks and ground transportation to smuggle the victims. And like I said, unofficial border crossings like that are very hard to identify and track. And that's a problem for law enforcement who's trying to catch these traffickers. And last thing is, like I said, education. Children are spending more time at home on their computers, which makes them a lot more vulnerable to exploitation, to traffickers trying to befriend them. And also, when they're spending a lot of time on the computer and online, they become more complacent, and maybe they're less capable of noticing weird things like a pop-up, or they get bored with school, and then suddenly somebody tries to befriend them, and that's something different and exciting that breaks the routine of sitting at home all day, because they can't go out and play with their friends or travel or go to the school. So there are a couple of resources that we would like to share with you, and they'll be shared at the end of the presentation. There's a document that we want to share, which has, like I said, cyber awareness tips, and also tips about control indicators, different indicators that you can look out for that can show some sort of control or an attempt to groom. And These resources are going to be shared with you later along with these 3 slides. And also, if you have any other questions about the organization, obviously please ask at the end in the Q&A portion, but you can always reach Protect Us Kids Foundation on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We use the handle @ProtectUsKids. Please encourage your kids also to follow us. We try to engage with them and do activities and share like online safety tips with them. And also for you, if you have any questions, you can go on our website, contact us via the email or the phone number. And I will hand it over now to She Hacks to share their presentation. Patricia?
Hello guys, my name is Patricia, and today I'll be taking you through online safety for children. Give me a second. Like I said, my name is Patricia Musomba. I am a cybersecurity researcher at ICRAL Innovation Hub in Nairobi. I'm also a member of She Hacks. I have been a member for the last 1.5 years. She Hacks is a community of women who are in cybersecurity from different backgrounds and all across Kenya. The purpose of this community is to bring together women, like-minded women, to share knowledge, experience, as well as mentorship. We run a couple of programs that are aimed at capacity building in cybersecurity, as well as empowering the next generation of cybersecurity experts. So we have programs in campuses, and we also hold boot camps to offer skills and to teach skills that are necessary in the cybersecurity industry. So let's, for today, I'm stepping in for Laura, who is the co-founder of She Hacks. And I'm really happy to be here today. And I hope we all get to learn together. So there has been a digital shift in Kenya. Businesses are moving online, even due to COVID-19. School is also moving online, in that now students are learning more via online platforms so that their education continues despite the pandemic. From research, 87% of Kenyans between the ages of 7 to 10 use the internet for social media. These are statistics from our Communications Authority of Kenya. Even though the smartphone penetration in Kenya is not very high, kids still use their parents' phone, and they also go to cyber cafes to be able to access the internet. There's actually this joke about, do you have games on your phone, that many kids use to get adults to lend them their phones so that they can play games or they can access social media. This actually opens up their world to see how big and vast the world is, and it gives them a different perspective and a different learning perspective, and gives them something to look forward to. However, this also introduces a lot of risks to the children, and it can lead to harm. And thus there's that need to educate them and to create solutions that ensure that children are sheltered from illicit content as well as offenders on the internet. That is why I appreciate the work that Protect Us Kids is doing, and Lady Askari, to push this cause forward, because it's a necessary cause. It's our responsibility to make sure that the internet is safe for children. So what are some of the risks that children face online? Some of these have already been discussed by Anna, but I will go through them briefly. one of the biggest risks that children face is exposure to inappropriate material. The internet provides a sea of information, but this information is never filtered for anyone. So whoever goes online, whatever material is there, they're free to actually access it. And therefore this exposes kids to materials such as pornographic images, violent images and violent videos, inappropriate movies that they're not yet well developed psychologically to handle. We also have cyberbullying, where as children are social beings too. They like to share about their lives. They're on social media. They're sharing about their views and opinions. And this exposes them to other people, whether other children or even adults. They can take these opinions and use them against them and bully them. And this can lead to low self-esteem and depression. And so this is something really, really that needs to be taken into account. We also have interaction with predators. The internet has become a hunting ground for sexual predators, for kidnappers, and therefore when they interact with children, they want to blackmail them, and they want to pull them in and take advantage of them. We also have blackmail. For blackmail, it's the use of sometimes you can hack into someone's phone, and then you have something over them. For instance, it's a picture they took, and predators will most likely tell children that if you don't do this, then I'll post these images that you sent me, or these images that I found on your phone. And for fear of being embarrassed and to their peers and to their friends, they will end up doing what that person said they should do. An instance of this is there was a challenge that was going around from 2015 to around 2018. It was known as the Blue Whale Challenge. This actually contributed to a lot of suicides across the world. This challenge would give like 50 tasks to a child over 50 days. So, and they had to give photographic evidence for having completed the task. And at the end of the challenge, that is at day 50, the challenge would ask the kid to kill themselves. And there was actually a case like that in Nairobi in 2017, where a young boy committed suicide. And this led to the banning of that challenge. And this kind of gives you the scope of how much the internet can be used to take advantage of children, because these are over 100 lives were claimed by this challenge alone. And there are many more that entice children and blackmail them into bringing harm to themselves. Those are some of the things that Anna mentioned, like online chat rooms, where when children express having gone through something distressing, then to continue. So what are some of the tips that children can use to, just give me a second. I'm sorry about that. So what are some of the tips for children to protect themselves, because it's not really just the responsibility of the adults. It's also not just the responsibility of the parents to protect the children when they're online. It's also, we should also bring the children in so that they can take responsibility of their online pursuits. So one of the major tips is to report cyberbullying. However, I need to mention that for the reporting of cyberbullying, there has to have been a channel already established, either by the responsible adult or the school. There needs to have been a channel already established so that children can feel safe to report cyberbullying. For instance, one of the biggest barriers to reporting of anything by children is the fear of their privileges being taken away. For instance, they fear that when I report that I'm being bullied online, then my internet privileges are taken away and then I will not be able to interact with my friends. So they hide that behavior. So I need to emphasize that we need to establish a channel, a safe channel for children to report cyberbullying. Number two is to avoid joining clubs or any contests without consent from parents. These clubs, most of the times they're usually disguised as helpful, but then once you join, you realize there are subtleties in the clubs or in the contest, and they're asking for things that are an honest someone who has your best interest at heart shouldn't be asking you. So children are advised to join only the clubs and contests that have been approved by their parents, whereby if you see something online and you would want to join, ask an adult you trust and ask them what they think about it, and then you can do the research together about that club or about that contest before actually joining in, and then that will prevent eventually having to deal with bullying or being blackmailed. That will prevent that. The other thing is don't talk to strangers. This has always been said to children, but then this used to apply very well to, traditionally it was physical, like when you're walking down the road, don't talk to strangers. But then when it comes to the online community, we fail to tell our children not to talk to strangers there. Why? Because for instance, on Facebook, you have to befriend people so that you keep seeing their content. But then you see that children have all these friends that they don't know about. They don't know who these people are, but they have befriended them, and these people can access the child's activities. They can access they can literally access photos and all these very personal information. So it's very important to make sure that you only befriend the people you know, the people that are actually friends to you in real life, so that it's not really a virtual world where you've created all these people that you don't know, and these people can easily take advantage of you because they have access to you. Number four is avoid clicking links or attachments if you don't know the origin. So one of the biggest cyber attacks in our world today is phishing. And phishing is where a target is picked, and then once a target is identified, an attacker sends links or malicious links that will lead you to either download software that is bad for your computer or your phone, or they will or you can divulge information about you, for instance passwords, and these passwords can be used now to log in into your social media accounts and releasing photos that you did not want the world to see. So it is very important to make sure that you don't click links that have just been sent to you. Sometimes these spam emails are not flagged by our email providers. Therefore, they make it to our inboxes. Therefore, before you click, make sure you study that email first. If anything with a link, make sure it's coming from a credible source, so that if you click on it, you're very sure that it's nothing harmful that is going to happen to your computer. This can also happen via text or even calls. Sometimes people receive calls from people pretending to be, let's say, their internet service provider, and they will make it look urgent, and they will trick you. They will trick you into diverging information that can be used against you, or that can be used to access your other accounts. So be very aware of this. This is not just a tip for children; it's a tip for anyone, really. That you should not click on any links that you do not know where they're from. On to the parents. As I mentioned earlier, it is our responsibility. If our kids have access to internet, it is definitely our responsibility to make sure that they're safe online, and that we're also creating a safe environment for them. So one of the main things I would want to stress is awareness. The only way kids can protect themselves is if they are aware of the risks that everything poses. So as a parent, it's your responsibility to have continuous conversations with your children about security, especially online. You can utilize online videos that have been in the form of cartoons, that like content that is very relatable to children, so that you break down the big jargons to small chunks that they can understand. And there are also games and activities that you can use to make sure that children understand to make sure they understand the repercussions and the risks that they face online. One of those, like, you can find these videos on YouTube. There's a site that is known as Know Before. That is know, then B, and the number 4. That has online activities, and that can be used to train children on digital safety. So one of the tips for parents is to use parental controls. This is tackling, for instance, screen time, making sure that there's a password for accessing, let's say, accounts like Netflix, where you make sure that there's a password there instituted, so that kids do not access material that is not safe for them. Another one is making sure that screen time is controlled even in the house. And this will be very useful if you've already given them the awareness talk, that this talk has been had continuously. And whenever you see a new scam, make sure you're showing your children, so that it's an ongoing conversation about safety. The other one is to use kid-friendly search engines. For instance, on Google, you can enable safe search, which makes sure that content is filtered, especially sexual content, and therefore this will help you have a peace of mind knowing that your kid, whatever they're accessing online has already been filtered before. There are other search engines such as Kidtopia, Kiddle, Kids Search Engine. You can find all these applications on your respective phone store. So that will give you a safe avenue for kids to actually look for information online. Number 3 is to keep the computer in a common area. If kids are using your computer to access the internet, make sure it's in an area where you can see them actually browsing, because they will shy away from accessing adult content when the computer is in a common area. Uh, for phones, make sure now you kid-friendly search engines are used, so that you, because you can never be sure what exactly they're accessing. It's for you to have all these preventative measures for you. Number 4 is to set standards for what children can do online. I think children emulate us. They emulate what we do. And if you're telling them all these things are bad for you, but then when they use your phone, they're seeing links, bad links there, like links that lead them to very, very adult content, or very violent behavior, or you're not setting a good example for them. So as much as you're telling them to shy away from these sites, shy away from links like these or from chat rooms like these, also show them the good ones, because it's easier to preach heaven than to preach hell. Like, preach the good things, tell them about the good things, show them good resources where they can learn, show them good chat rooms that they can be in, and those ones will show them, there's also a safe side to the internet. It's not all bad and bad and bad. Because if you keep on stressing on the bad sides, then you will raise a curiosity in them, and they will want to know more about those things. The other thing is also to check if your child is surfing the dark web. Always make sure that when you make sure that you look at the history of the computer, look at the trails they're leaving behind. Make sure that you're eyes wide open, so that you can know what exactly is going on in your child's life. And then you can also use a virtual private network. This is something you can Google on how to set up in your home, to make sure that you've put protections on your home network, so that attackers are not able to jump onto your network and send all those malicious links and all that. Then the other one is to enable antivirus programs on your kid's computer. This will make sure that if they if by bad luck they click on a link, it means there's a protection for them to make sure that that virus is not installed into the computer. So make sure that the antivirus is always on. And then the other is to review the digital tools and softwares before downloading them. This is a tip for both parents and children also, because sometimes there will be apps on the App Store, for instance, especially for games that are very innocent, but then in the background they are actually these games are actually collecting data on you, things like that. So make sure that even as kids are downloading anything online, make sure that you've told them that they should look at the app. Does it have too many ads? Does it look at the reviews of that app, so that you can know whether you're downloading something legitimate, or it's from a malicious person who is trying to get information from you. Before I move on, we should also make sure that we teach our kids about social media etiquette or netiquette. Make sure that they know that whatever is said online will remain there and it can be retrieved later. Make sure that they know how to safely express themselves both online and even in the home. Make sure that they know how to safely express themselves, so that they're not using social media as an outlet to rant. And because that whole rant is what will attract these predators and use that against them and make them feel like they're understood. So if we create a space that is already understanding to them, it means that they will not run to the internet for solution, they will run to us for solutions. So that will enable them to talk more to us about things. The other parts of our presentation is to look at online learning. Since COVID-19, a lot of learning has moved online, where we're now utilizing platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, all those platforms. We're using them now for education, and that is a positive, very positive side of technology, because if all these did not exist, then, for instance, a conference like a webinar like this could not be happening right now. So even with the positive of it, still attackers found a way um, to use this time to bomb into meetings that they're not invited into, to use this as a way of advertising, their bad websites and their bad adware and malicious software for you, to get you to download the software. So there has been an increase in these threats. For instance, there was bombing where like uninvited people just walk into your chat room and they start posting things, and they cause a lot of disruption, and some post links to things and all that. And but it's, as planners of these online as users of these online platforms, it's also our job to make sure that as we set up the conference, we make sure that we're putting in extra security measures. These security measures, for instance, include for the different platforms, there are different ways of doing this, but make sure that you're generating random meeting IDs, and do not use static links. Make sure that these things are random, and so that they cannot be used, like links expire, so that when someone online finds it, they cannot join you. They cannot join the conference. For instance, I loved how in this one you had to register first for you to receive the link on your email. You'll find that some organizations have posted their links online for their webinars. Yes, it will drive engagement, but then you're also exposing yourself to all these other attackers online. The other one is to moderate attendance. This has been done through the registration part, and also through the creation of a waiting room where you can approve who is joining in and who is not joining in. Then the other one is to have an identity system to allow you to authenticate who joins the chat room. For instance, if it's a school platform, we're using, let's say, Zoom to teach a class, then you already know who your students are. So make sure that you're authenticating them, not just randomly letting in anyone. Yes, these are extra measures and they take time, but then nothing worth having is easy. And these extra measures, they might be simple enough, but then they go a long way to preventing exposing the people who join us for our conferences, the people who join in on webinars and all that. It's protecting them from attackers. It's as well protecting children from exposure to all these other things, because bombing could lead to children wondering, hey, who was that? They might be curious. But then the thing about curiosity is that without awareness, without creating constant awareness, you cannot be cautious. You're just curious, so you will end up clicking on links. You'll end up, following yourself down a rabbit hole to, uncovering the dark web and all that. But then when awareness has been instituted in place, it means that that child will be more cautious to things. Also make sure that you lock the meetings to outsiders. Like this is also a setting on most of these platforms. Also make sure you ask participants to sign in with a secure password. And lastly, make sure that you're using the latest versions of the apps from the official sites, because the more the rise of the use of these platforms, video conferencing platforms, attackers are also creating sites that look exactly like these ones, but then they're geared towards collecting data, collecting emails. They will collect these emails so that again they can do phishing on you. They can send you these malicious links. So make sure that you're only installing the latest versions of the applications from the official sites. Yes, that marks the end of my presentation today. Thank you for listening in.
So first of all, thank you so much to Patricia, Anna, and Michael for all of the great information that you've shared. It's been very insightful, even to me as a parent, so thank you. We do have time to answer a few questions that are disappearing. Okay, so sorry. So one of the questions is, we have many agencies that are dealing with kids and protections. What success rate are we seeing with, organizations like Protect Us Kids that may be able to share in terms of, the impact of these awareness programs on reducing child exploitation?
Thank you, Sienna. I saw the previous questions before they disappeared as well. So as far as success cases and success rate, so something I think I didn't mention before is we also partner with other nonprofit organizations all over the world and partner with other tech companies. Before the pandemic, we went to schools and did awareness seminars for kids in high schools and middle schools. We also partner with mental and behavioral health professionals to help them learn about indicators that they can notice on the children that they interact with. So I think that the success depends on how much awareness we spread. And I think our main goal is to, because we serve those who don't have a voice in rural and underserved communities all over the world, our goal is to bring awareness to all the parties, the teachers, the parents, the mental and behavioral health professionals who can help protect those kids. But I think that the biggest success will be seen when we bring awareness to the kids, when we empower them and we teach them how to protect themselves and protect each other, and how to notice all those weird things that can happen on the internet, like Patricia mentioned, the different ways that predators try to access these kids. And if they are more aware of things that happen and understand that this can happen to anybody, then we won. I think we would be successful because they would be able to advocate for each other. Just to give you an example, last year we were able to go to a school in the United States in an inner city, a very underserved community. And when I started presenting, the kids were laughing. They were saying, "Oh, that doesn't happen to here. That is not going to happen to us." But then I asked a question, one of the students, and we said, "Okay, so how many of you sometimes don't have a place to stay, or you run away from home because you had a fight with your parents?" And a lot of hands went up. And then when we asked, "Okay, so if I come to you and I say, 'Hey, I have a place for you to stay,' and I befriend you, would you come stay?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, well, then this is just to show you that this can happen anywhere, because later I'll befriend you more and then you'll trust me, and then I'll provide you a roof over your head, and then I can try to manipulate you and force you into doing other things." And we've shown examples of messages like that, like the ones I showed in the grooming slides, of how this happens online. And I think the most powerful thing we can do is to have trust with the kids. I know that one of the questions that disappeared before is how to have the kids talk to the parents instead of parents forcing them, because that never helps, and they also are more prone to hide things, is having this trusting relationship where they would share what's going on online. And then also in the document that we're going to share at the end has a section on one of the pages of tips, cyber awareness tips, which also include what I just mentioned about building trust and having the kids share the information with you voluntarily. And like Patricia mentioned, advocating like for them and explaining the bad things that can happen, but without, threat or pressure. I don't see any other questions.
There was one question that I did want to come back to in terms of the effort to reach organizations and churches in Kenya. For Lady Ascari, this is something that we are fully committed to working with communities on. So I will send out my contact information. But if you have any suggestions on any communities that you feel would benefit from this information, please let us know. We have reached out to some schools and organizations that we are hoping would will if they're interested in receiving their this information, we're more than happy to provide it. But if you have any suggestions, please do let us know.
All right. Sienna?
Yes.
You were muted, you were talking.
No, I was just reading this question that we got in. Patricia, can you check out this question about are you aware of how easy it is to report incidents of sexual predators in Kenya?
So in Kenya, the reporting is done through the Communications Authority of Kenya. On their website, there is a part. The last time I checked, there's a button of reporting both cybercrime, and they also have a section for children. For I think it's children. Save the Children. I'm not sure what the link is, but through Communications Authority of Kenya, you're able to actually report everything there. That's the only provision there is about reporting. The other is through actually our police stations. Whenever you notice like such advances on, let's say, your kids' social media and stuff like that, the best way to go about is actually to use the police station, and they will actually guide you on how to go about it. Yeah, so that's what I would say about reporting.
Okay, well, our time is up. For any questions that did not get answered, we will respond in an email to you, and please do reach out. We've shared our email information in the chat boxes. Well, I would just like to thank you all for your time and your expertise to Protect Us Kids and She Hacks. I really look forward to continuing to work with you, with both of your organizations in order to protect our kids, you know, and making sure that this information gets out to the community. I would also like to take a time to thank everybody who attended with us today. You could have been doing anything this Tuesday afternoon, but you know, spent the last hour with us. So I do appreciate your time. If you have any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, or if you're in the States, enjoy your day. And we'll connect again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.